The house looked normal from the outside, old, a little faded, but normal. No one passing by would ever guess what lived inside its walls, or what waited in the dark hours of early morning. When Ethan and Claire first walked through the front gate, they thought they had found a lucky deal. A two-story house with wide windows, a small yard, and rent so cheap that Claire asked the landlord twice if he was sure. He was an old man with gray hair and a nervous eye twitch, and he repeated the same line both times. There is no third floor. Don't go looking for it. Ethan laughed the first time he heard it. Claire didn't. Something in the old man's voice felt too serious to be a joke. His hands were shaking when he passed them the keys. He never stepped inside. He only pointed toward the staircase visible through the front door and added quietly, "No matter what you hear, don't climb past the second floor." That night they moved in. And that same night the house spoke. The hook begins here, the first 5 to 6 minutes that must glue the YouTube audience. It was 2:45 a.m. when Claire sat up in bed, her breathing sharp, her heart pounding as if someone had woken her by shaking her shoulders. She stared into the darkness, confused. Ethan was asleep beside her, his back turned, breathing steady. No noise. Nothing unusual. But something had woken her. She listened. And then she heard it. A single footstep. Not on their floor. Not in the hallway. Above them. The soft thud came again. Then another, faster this time, like someone was running across a wooden floor directly over their bed. Claire's breath caught. There was no third floor. The landlord had said it. Twice. She whispered, "Ethan. Ethan, wake up." He didn't move. More footsteps, light, fast, circling overhead. The kind of sound a child might make when running in a tight circle. Then everything stopped. Silence settled over the room like a cold blanket. Claire stared at the ceiling, not daring to blink. Then the knocking started. Knock. A space. Knock, knock. A longer pause. Knock. A pattern. A rhythm. Like a message only the house understood. The knocks were so clear, so close, that Claire thought she could almost feel them through the air. She covered her mouth with both hands, afraid the sound of her breathing might draw whatever it was down the stairs. She leaned over and shook Ethan's shoulder hard. He groaned, half awake. What's wrong?" "Someone's upstairs," Claire whispered. Ethan blinked. "There is no upstairs." But then he heard it too. The footsteps returned, fast this time, sprinting from one side to the other, like something was excited they were awake. The ceiling creaked under the weight. Ethan sat up, wide awake now. "What the hell is that?" Claire shook her head. "The landlord, he warned us." The footsteps stopped. One slow knock right above them answered. Ethan swung his legs over the bed. "I'm going to check." "No," Claire hissed. "Please. Don't go." Ethan reached for the lamp, but as soon as his fingers touched the switch, the light turned on by itself. Not dim, not flickering, just a solid click like someone had pressed the switch beside him. Ethan froze. Claire grabbed his arm and pulled him back toward her, her body shaking. The hallway outside their bedroom echoed with creaks as if someone was walking up the stairs, then stopping halfway. A breath of cold air slid under the door. Claire felt the fine hairs on her arms stand straight. Ethan whispered, "Someone's in the house." Claire whispered back, "What if it's not someone?" Another knock. This time on the wall beside their bedroom door. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. The doorknob twitched. Not much. Just a small, careful turn, like someone trying to enter quietly. Ethan grabbed the baseball bat he kept beside the bed. Claire clutched his shirt, shaking her head, silently begging him not to go near the door. The knob twisted again. This time harder. A low scraping sound pressed against the wood, like nails dragging across the surface. Claire whispered, "Don't open it. Please. Don't open it." The knob stopped turning. Silence settled again. A full minute passed. Then the thing on the other side began knocking again. Faster, louder, almost eager. Knock, 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 knock. Ethan raised the bat. Claire buried her face in his chest. And then, everything stopped. No knocks. No footsteps. No movement. Like whatever was there had suddenly vanished. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that both of them could see their breaths. Then, from the ceiling directly above their bed, a voice whispered, "Why did you move in?" Ethan dropped the bat. Claire screamed. The voice laughed, soft, childlike, close, though no child lived anywhere near that house. Then something crawled across the ceiling, fast and scraping, moving toward the stairs. They heard it climb. To the floor that wasn't supposed to exist. The third floor. The house did not return to normal in the morning. It only pretended. Sunlight slipped weakly through the curtains, touching the bed where Ethan and Claire sat in silence. Neither had slept after the voice on the ceiling whispered to them. Ethan kept replaying the sound in his mind, too close, too clear, too real to blame on dreams. Claire kept staring at the ceiling, expecting footsteps at any moment. But the house stayed quiet. Too quiet. Ethan finally stood up and stretched his stiff shoulders. "We need to check the house," he said, though his voice shook. "If someone broke in, we have to know how." Claire didn't want him to go anywhere near the stairs, but Ethan insisted. He grabbed the bat again. She followed him reluctantly, clutching his shirt from behind. The hallway felt colder than usual, as if the night had left fingerprints on the walls. Dust floated in the sunlight, moving in strange spiral patterns like something had disturbed the air moments before they stepped out. The staircase waited at the end of the hall. Claire stopped several feet away. "Ethan," the landlord said. "I know what he said," Ethan whispered. "But we heard someone. That wasn't imagination." He took the first step. It creaked beneath his weight. Claire's heart hammered. Then he took another. And another. Claire held her breath, watching him climb to the second-floor landing. She followed slowly. The second-floor hallway looked normal. 3 bedrooms, a small bathroom, and a window facing the backyard. Nothing unusual. No broken windows. No signs of forced entry. But something was wrong. The air felt heavier, like it held a secret. Ethan moved toward the far end of the hallway. That was where the ceiling had sounded the closest last night, right above the guest bedroom. He pushed the door open. Claire stepped inside behind him. Everything was untouched. No footprints. No dust disturbed. No open window. Still, Claire whispered, "It was right above here." Ethan tapped the ceiling with the bat. Hollow. Solid wood. Nothing strange. Claire shook her head. "Ethan, that noise came from above this. There's something up there." He didn't want to believe it, but he couldn't deny the fear crawling under his skin. He stepped back into the hallway, scanning the ceiling for an attic hatch, a ladder, anything. There was nothing. Just smooth plaster. No opening. No access. No hidden door. Just emptiness. Claire whispered, "What if the 3rd floor is sealed, like he said?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The memory of the footsteps running overhead made the answer obvious. Something was up there. Something alive. Something that knew they were in the house. That night, they decided to sleep in the living room. Claire refused to stay under the ceiling where the footsteps had run. Ethan didn't argue. He laid blankets on the couch. She chose the armchair. Both left the lights on. At 2:30 a.m., the house still felt quiet. At 2:40 a.m., Claire's eyelids grew heavy. At 2:45 a.m., she woke to the sound she feared the most. Footsteps. Above them. Again. Not slow this time. Running. Hard. Fast. Something, or someone, was sprinting in tight circles as if excited to see them return. Claire covered her ears. Ethan stared at the ceiling in disbelief. "Why is it louder?" Claire whispered. Ethan stood up. "I'm not going through this again. I want to know what's up there." The running stopped. Silence filled the room. Then 3 hard knocks came from the ceiling. Knock. 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 And then, the staircase creaked. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. But no one was on the stairs. Claire whispered, "Ethan, don't move." He couldn't help himself. He turned toward the hallway. The staircase leading to the 2nd floor was completely empty. No shadows, no movement, nothing. But the creaking continued, step after step, as though someone invisible was walking down toward them. Ethan grabbed the bat again. Claire pulled the blanket around her shoulders. The creaking reached the bottom. Stopped. Then something exhaled, soft, cold, against the back of Ethan's neck. He spun around, swinging the bat blindly at the empty air. Claire screamed. The front door shook violently as if someone threw their whole body against it. Then the knocking began again. Not from upstairs. Not from the door. From inside the walls. All around them. Every direction. Knock. 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 Knock 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 knock. Knock, pause, knock knock. Different rhythms. Different patterns. Like a conversation between things trapped inside the house. Claire cried, "Ethan, make it stop. Make it stop." Ethan dragged her toward the front door. He unlocked it. Pulled. The door didn't open. Something was holding it shut from the outside, or from above. Then from upstairs a small voice whispered, "Come up. We know you're awake." The footsteps began again, racing back toward the 3rd floor that wasn't supposed to be real. Claire collapsed into Ethan's arms, shaking violently. He whispered, "We're trapped." The house answered him with one final knock. Slow, heavy, right above the living room. The kind of knock that didn't ask permission. The kind of knock that warned. We're not alone. Morning came slowly, as if even the sun didn't want to touch that house. Ethan and Claire sat at the kitchen table with untouched cups of coffee in front of them. Neither spoke. Neither had slept. Their eyes were red, their hands cold, their faces pale. The knocking still echoed inside their skulls. Ethan rubbed his face with shaking hands. We can't stay here another night. I don't care what the lease says. I'm not risking our lives. Claire nodded silently. Her voice had cracked too many times already. Ethan took a deep breath. I'm going to talk to the landlord. Claire looked up with fear in her eyes. What if he already knows everything? Ethan didn't want to think about that. He grabbed his keys and headed out. Claire refused to stay alone, so she followed him to the car. The landlord lived only 6 minutes away. But when he opened the door and saw them standing there, exhausted, terrified, he didn't look surprised. He looked guilty. Something happened, didn't it? He whispered. Ethan stepped forward. You told us there was no third floor. The landlord swallowed hard. There isn't. Not for living people. Claire felt her knees weaken. Ethan grabbed the old man's arm. Tell us what's up there. The landlord shut his eyes. I sealed it 27 years ago. No one is supposed to enter. No one is supposed to hear them. Ethan's voice rose. Who is them? The landlord whispered, the ones who lived there before. The ones who never left. Claire stepped back. Her skin crawled. The landlord continued, you need to move out. Today. Right now. Before 2:45 a.m. Ethan grabbed him again. Why that time? Why does everything start at that time? The old man didn't answer. He only shook his head, trembling. Claire whispered, just tell us. The landlord looked at her with eyes full of fear. They knock, because they want you to knock back. If you ever do, they'll know you're willing to open the way. Claire covered her mouth, horrified. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Open what? The landlord didn't answer. Instead, he closed the door slowly, his voice breaking as he spoke through the crack. Leave before they think you're listening. Ethan and Claire returned to the house in silence. They packed their bags quickly, grabbing only what they could carry. They were halfway through taking boxes down the stairs when they heard it. A tap. Soft. Slow. From above. Ethan stopped moving. Claire froze. Another tap followed. And another. Then one long drag like something was crawling across the ceiling. Claire whispered, it's too early, it's not 2:45. Ethan didn't respond. Because the sound wasn't just above them. It was following them. Wherever they walked, the tapping shifted, moving over their heads, tracking their footsteps like a predator circling its prey. Ethan pulled Claire into the living room. We need to get out. Now. He grabbed the front door handle. It didn't move. He turned it harder. Locked. But not by him. Something had locked them in. The tapping stopped. Silence swallowed the house. Then, thump. Right above them. Claire whispered, tears forming, Ethan. Something is standing above us. Ethan stepped back slowly, shielding her with his body. Then the ceiling dust drifted down, as if something dug its nails into the wood from the other side. A thin crack stretched across the ceiling panel. Claire screamed. Ethan pulled her to the far corner of the room. Another crack. This one longer. And another. It wasn't the ceiling breaking. It was a door. A hidden door. A sealed entrance that was never meant to open. The final crack snapped loudly, and a square outline appeared overhead. The paint peeled back. Dust rained down. Claire whispered, oh God, that's the third floor. The wooden panel twitched, someone pushing downward. Ethan threw a chair beneath it, blocking it. It's not opening. It's not opening. But the wood pushed harder. The chair legs scraped across the floor. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm, almost collapsing. Then, knock. Right on the hidden panel. A second knock. Heavier. Harder. The chair shook. A third knock. This time it wasn't asking. It was demanding. Claire cried, Ethan, it's trying to come down. Ethan grabbed the chair, forcing it tighter beneath the panel. We need to get out. Window. They ran to the living room window. Ethan pulled it open, and froze. Every window in the house was sealed shut. From the outside. Thick wooden boards covered them, boards they had never seen before, boards that weren't there when they moved in. Claire whispered, they're trapping us. The house answered with a low groan, the wood above them bending. The hidden door was lowering itself. Not opening. Lowering. Like something was crawling down through it. Ethan ran to the back door. Locked. He hit it with his shoulder. Nothing. Behind them, the hidden door dropped another inch. Claire covered her ears. "Ethan, please, do something." He grabbed a lamp and threw it at the panel. It didn't even crack. Instead, something on the other side scratched back in response. 10 slow, deliberate strokes of long, sharp nails. Claire's breath trembled. Ethan whispered, barely able to speak, "We're not getting out." The house went silent again, waiting. From the dark space behind the panel, a voice whispered, "Knock back." Claire collapsed to her knees. The door lowered another inch. "And we'll open for you." The hidden door in the ceiling hung crooked now, lowered just enough for darkness to spill out like smoke. Claire pressed her back against the wall, her breath sharp and fast. Ethan held the broken lamp like a weapon, even though he knew it would do nothing. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt alive, awake, watching. The voice from the darkness repeated softly, almost playfully, "Knock back." Ethan shook his head. "We're not doing that." The voice answered with a slow dragging sound, like fingers scraping across the wooden beams, then a whisper so close it brushed their skin. "You already hear us. That means we can hear you." Claire sobbed silently. She grabbed Ethan's hand, gripping it so tight her nails dug into his palm. The ceiling panel suddenly jerked, dropping another 2 inches. Ethan pulled Claire away. "We need to hide. Just until morning. Sunrise has to weaken this thing." But the house disagreed. A deep rumble trembled through the walls, like something massive shifted inside them. The pictures hanging in the hallway fell to the floor. The lights flickered, once, twice, then stayed on with a low humming vibration. Claire whispered, "Ethan, it's angry." He didn't respond. He couldn't. His eyes were locked on the ceiling where something moved behind the darkness. Shapes, shadows, lumps. It was impossible to tell if it was one person or several. Then something reached down. A pale hand, thin, too thin, slipped through the gap. It hung there silently, fingers long and unnaturally bent, twitching like an insect's legs. Claire let out a choked scream and collapsed against Ethan. He dragged her backward. The hand opened slowly, palm facing down as if feeling the air, as if searching for them. Then it curled its fingers, tapping the ceiling panel. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. The same knocking pattern from the first night. The same message. A language of the dead. Ethan whispered, "It wants us to answer." Claire grabbed his face with shaking hands. "No. No matter what happens, don't knock." Before Ethan could respond, the hand withdrew into the darkness, but only for a moment. Then something else came down. Not a hand. Not a face. Just hair. Long, black strands dangled from the gap, swaying gently like something was leaning over, observing them from above. Claire covered her eyes. "Please, stop looking at us." A soft giggle echoed through the ceiling. A child's giggle. Broken. Echoing. Wrong. Ethan whispered, "They're not children." The giggle shifted into a low, cracked chanting. Too many voices, too close, whispering in unison. Claire recognized a few words, though she wished she hadn't. "Open. Joy. Return. Knock, knock, knock." Ethan pulled Claire toward the dining room. "We need something to barricade the door. If they come down." A loud boom shook the entire ceiling. Then another. And another. The hidden door jerked violently with each impact from above. Dust rained down like dry snow. The chair beneath the panel cracked. The wood groaned. They were trying to break through. Claire cried, "It's not going to hold." "Ethan." He grabbed the dining table, flipping it onto its side and pushing it under the panel to reinforce the collapsing chair. But something on the other side pushed harder. A long, sharp object stabbed through the gap. A finger? A stick? A bone? Ethan yanked Claire away again and they ran into the kitchen. But the house was ready. As soon as they stepped in, every cabinet door slammed open at once. Bang, 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 like invisible hands ripping them apart. Plates flew out and shattered across the floor. Claire screamed as a knife flew off the counter, embedding itself in the wall 2 inches from Ethan's head. He ducked, pulling her to the pantry. They slammed the pantry door shut and held it with all their strength. The entire house fell silent. No footsteps. No knocks. No whispers. Just breathing. Not theirs. Something outside the pantry door was breathing, right against the wood. Slow. Heavy. Wet. Ethan tightened his grip on the handle. Claire pressed her forehead to his shoulder, tears streaming silently. Then the breathing stopped. For 10 long seconds they waited, frozen, terrified. Then, knock, knock, knock. Right on the pantry door. Claire nearly fainted. The knocking repeated, faster, more desperate. Knock, 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 knock. then stopped abruptly. A voice whispered through the door crack. "You moved in. So now you belong upstairs." Ethan's strength faltered. Claire shook uncontrollably. "Why us?" she whispered. The voice replied with a childlike softness, almost a smile in its tone. "Because you heard us." The ceiling above them creaked loudly as something crawled toward the pantry. Slowly. Purposefully. Closer. Ethan whispered, "They're choosing us." Claire whispered back, "No, they already chose." The house trembled. The ceiling cracked above the pantry. Dust rained down. Something was trying to break in from above. And for the first time since moving in, the couple understood. They weren't being haunted. They were being recruited. The ceiling above the pantry cracked again, this time deeper, louder, as if something heavy dragged itself right over their heads. Ethan held the pantry door so tightly his knuckles turned white. Claire's trembling never stopped. Then suddenly, silence. Not calm silence. The type of silence that waits. Ethan whispered, "They're not leaving. They're listening." Claire swallowed hard. "What do they want from us?" A faint whisper brushed through the ceiling. "Open, open, open." They squeezed their eyes shut, praying for sunrise, praying for anything that would weaken whatever lived in the floor above. When the first thin line of daylight finally touched the kitchen tiles, the whispering faded. The scratching stopped. The breathing vanished. The house fell dead still. Ethan slowly loosened his grip on the pantry door. Claire hid her face in her hands, her body shaking with relief. "Morning," she whispered. "Thank God." Ethan opened the pantry door a few inches, scanning the kitchen. Everything looked the same. The broken plate still covered the floor. The knife was still in the wall. Dust still hung in the air. The chair and the dining table still braced themselves under the half-open ceiling panel. For one moment, just one fragile moment, it looked like a normal house. Ethan helped Claire stand. "We're leaving. I don't care if we have to break a window." But before they could take one step toward escape, Claire froze. She was staring at the wall near the hallway entrance. "Ethan, what is that?" Ethan followed her gaze. Then his stomach dropped. Symbols. Hundreds of them. Carved into the wall. Burned into the wood. Scratched in deep, violent patterns. Circles. Triangles. Spirals. Hands. Symbols made of straight lines that didn't look human. Symbols made of curves that looked like bones. Claire slowly approached the wall. Her voice trembled. "These weren't here yesterday." Ethan shook his head. "They were never here. Not since we moved in." But now they covered nearly every inch of the hallway wall, stretching upward, downward, into the corners and shadows. Some of the symbols looked almost fresh, the wood around them still raw. Claire whispered, "Ethan, this is not normal haunting. This is ritual." He didn't want to believe it, but he couldn't deny it. The symbols grew more disturbing as they followed them into the hallway. A large spiral, drawn in what looked like dark red paint, or something far worse, spread across the wall near the stairs. In the center of the spiral, one sentence had been written in shaky handwriting. "They never left the third floor." Claire covered her mouth. Ethan whispered, "The landlord didn't tell us everything." He stepped closer, examining a group of deep, straight lines arranged like a staircase. Claire's eyes widened. "Ethan, look at that. Look." She pointed to a mark near the bottom. A symbol shaped like a door, with a small upward arrow carved above it. A door that leads up. Ethan stepped back. "This is a map." Claire's voice cracked. "A map to the third floor." A cold draft swept down the stairs, pushing Claire's hair backward, like something exhaled from above. Ethan grabbed her hand. "We need to find a way out. Now." They rushed back to the living room window. Ethan shoved his hand through the crack between the boards, but there was no give. The boards didn't feel like wood. They felt warm, soft, like skin. Claire recoiled. "What is happening to this house?" Ethan used the bat to hit the boards. The sound that echoed wasn't wood. It was a dull, sickening thud, like striking thick flesh. Claire screamed, stumbling backward. Ethan's face drained of color. He whispered, "The house isn't blocking us." He looked up at the ceiling with horror. "It's growing around us." The ceiling cracked again. They both froze. A dark shape crossed behind the crack. Light didn't reflect off it. It absorbed it, like a shadow detached from a body. Claire whispered, "There's someone up there." Ethan whispered back, "No? I think there are many." The crack widened suddenly, spreading across the ceiling above the dining room. Dust fell. A shadow moved again. Then another. Then another. Long shapes. Bent limbs. Silhouettes walking sideways, upside down, crawling along unseen floors. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm. They're on the 3rd floor right now. Ethan felt his heart pounding hard enough to burst. Claire. She turned to him, terrified. What? He swallowed hard. The 3rd floor is right above us. For a full minute, they stood frozen, listening to the shifting, whispering shadows overhead. Then a soft tapping started from inside the wall beside Claire. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap. She screamed and stumbled back. The tapping followed her, moving along the wall as if something inside it was crawling after her. Ethan dragged her away from the wall and toward the front door. We have to break it. He slammed his shoulder into the door. Claire helped. They hit it again and again. On the 3rd floor, something laughed. A low, breathy, childlike laugh. The symbols on the wall began to glow, dim red like dying embers. Claire cried, "What does that mean?" Ethan backed away slowly. He whispered, "It means the cult never died." It meant something worse. The house wasn't haunted. It was still in use. And the 3rd floor was waking up. The glowing symbols on the walls dimmed slowly, flickering like dying coals before fading back into normal scratch marks. But the silence that followed was worse. Too still, too controlled, like the house was holding its breath, waiting for its next move. Ethan and Claire pressed their backs against the locked front door. Ethan's chest rose and fell fast, his breath sharp and uneven. Claire clutched her arms, her skin cold as ice. "Ethan," she whispered, "they're coming down. I can feel it." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The air felt heavy, thick, pressing down on their lungs. Something unseen filled the space like a weight sitting on their chests. Then it happened. A single step. Creak. From the ceiling above the living room. Slow and intentional, like someone was testing the wood with their heel. Claire grabbed Ethan's shirt. "Ethan, they're walking on the 3rd floor." He shook his head. The 3rd floor shouldn't even have a floor. It should be nothing but sealed beams. Another step. Followed by 2 more. Faster this time. Creak, creak, creak. Then silence again. Ethan whispered, "They're standing right above us." A whisper drifted from overhead, soft, light, almost curious. "You're still here." Claire covered her ears. "Please make it stop, please." Scratch, scratch, scratch. Nails, or something sharper, dragged slowly across the ceiling right above Claire's head. She dropped to the floor, shaking violently. Ethan pulled her away from the spot, his heart racing. The ceiling panel from earlier, the one that had started lowering, moved again. Not slowly this time. Not softly. It slammed downward 2 full inches. Bang. Dust exploded across the room. Claire screamed and crawled behind Ethan. Ethan raised the bat, though his hands trembled so badly he could barely hold it. A long, deep crack stretched from one corner of the ceiling to the other. Something was pushing. Something large. The wood bowed downward like 2 hands were pressing against it from above, trying to tear it open. Ethan backed away slowly. "They're breaking through." Before Claire could respond, a dark liquid began dripping from the crack. Thick, black, jelly. It splattered on the floor and began spreading across the wood in strange patterns. Spirals, shapes, symbols. They moved on their own as if alive. Claire screamed, "It's writing, Ethan, it's writing." The black liquid formed words. "Let us down." Ethan pulled Claire toward the dining room, stumbling over broken plates. But the moment they entered the hallway, all the lights went out. The house fell into complete darkness. No flicker. No warning. Just pure blackness swallowing everything. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm with both hands, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I can't see. I can't see anything." He whispered, "Stay close. Don't move." Something moved behind them. Not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Cold. Then a voice whispered right behind Claire's ear. "We see you." She shrieked and spun around, clawing at the darkness. Ethan swung the bat blindly, but it hit nothing. Then from down the hallway. Tap, 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 tap. The knocking rhythm. But this time it moved fast, traveling along the walls inside the wood, circling them. Tap, 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 tap. Ethan yelled, "Stop it." Everything went dead silent. Then, screech. Something long and sharp dragged down the length of the hallway wall. Plaster cracked. Wood splintered. The noise was so loud Claire pressed her hands against her ears, crying. Then a new sound. Thump. From the top of the staircase. Another thump. Then another. Like someone was slowly descending, one heavy step at a time. Ethan backed away, dragging Claire toward the kitchen. The thumps grew louder. Heavier. And then they stopped. right at the bottom of the stairs. Claire whispered, shaking uncontrollably, "Ethan. Something is standing there." A faint red glow flickered to life. Not from a light. From symbols. The symbols on the wall began glowing again, red like burning metal. The glow illuminated just enough for them to see the staircase. Something stood at the bottom step. Tall, thin, bent in strange ways. Its face was hidden in shadow, but its limbs were wrong, too long, too loose, hanging like wet ropes. It tilted its head slowly, observing them. Then it raised one long arm and tapped the wall beside it. Tap, 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 tap. Claire covered her face. "No, no, no." Ethan stepped in front of her. "Stay behind me." The creature stepped forward. Its limbs cracked as it moved, like old wood snapping apart. Its body dragged, scraping across the floor like bones sliding on stone. Ethan swung the bat. But before it reached the creature, the bat stopped midair. Something held it. Something invisible. The creature lifted its head slightly and whispered, "Join us upstairs." Then the bat flew from Ethan's hands, thrown by an unseen force, smashing into the wall behind them. Ethan grabbed Claire's hand. "Run." They sprinted toward the back door. The creature screeched, a horrible, piercing sound that rattled the windows and shook dust from the ceiling. Every door in the house slammed shut at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. The creature began crawling, fast, its limbs bending in impossible angles, its shadow stretching across the floor like liquid darkness. Claire fell. Ethan lifted her, dragging her forward. The creature lunged, and the ceiling above them cracked open with a violent explosion of dust and wood. Something else, something bigger, began to descend. The third floor wasn't just waking up. It was coming down. The ceiling split open with a violent roar. Dust poured down like a storm. Splinters rained across the hallway. The creature below froze, its head snapping upward as if obeying something stronger. Ethan shielded Claire as large chunks of wood crashed around them. The air filled with a choking cloud, making everything blur and tremble. Then a low groan swept through the house. Deep, ancient, alive. The ceiling didn't just break. It lowered. A full section of the ceiling, almost an entire room, moved downward like a massive elevator of shadows and broken wood. Claire's voice cracked. "Ethan, it's coming down, the whole floor is coming down." Ethan pulled her toward the kitchen, but the creature in the hallway screeched and lunged forward. Its limbs bent backward like a spider's. Its shadow stretched, reaching toward them before its physical body did. Ethan grabbed the broken pantry door and slammed it between them and the creature. The creature's claws hit the wood instantly, dragging deep scars across the surface. But behind them, above them, the third floor continued descending. Boards creaked and groaned as unseen hands guided them downward. Pieces of insulation floated like gray snow. Shapes, multiple shapes, shifted behind the thick dust. Claire clutched Ethan's arm desperately. "We have to get out. We have to get out before it reaches us." Ethan looked around wildly, searching for anything they could use. Windows boarded. Doors sealed. Walls shifting. The house had become a living maze. A thick, wet dripping sound echoed from the descending section of ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. Something black leaked through the cracks and hit the floor, spreading in slow circles like oil. The smell was sweet and rotten. Claire gagged. Ethan whispered, "This isn't a floor. It's something else, something alive." The creature in the hallway screeched as the descending structure neared it. It began crawling backward, limbs cracking and twisting until it climbed the wall like a terrified animal. Claire stared at it, shocked. "It's afraid." It was true. The creature, so violent moments before, now fled upward toward the stairway, screeching in panic as the third floor lowered closer and closer. Ethan grabbed Claire's wrist. "Now, run." They sprinted toward the only place left, the garage door. It was rusted shut, but maybe with enough force. A loud thud hit the floor behind them. Both froze. A new figure had landed. Tall, shrouded in darkness. It stood under the shadow of the descending third floor, its head tilted, its hands hanging loosely at its sides. Its silhouette was human, but not shaped right. Too elongated. Too stretched. Its neck bent like dried leather. Its legs folded in places where no joints should exist. The air chilled instantly. Claire whispered, "Ethan, there's more than one." Because another shape appeared. And another. And another. They descended like puppets, dangling first, then straightening as if waking up from a long sleep. Some crawled down the walls. Some unfolded themselves from impossible angles. Some simply slid through cracks like ink flowing down a page. Ethan's voice dropped into a whisper of pure terror. They're from the cult. This is what the cult became. Whispers filled the air, dozens of voices from the shadows. Knock. Joy. Return. One. Open. Claire covered her ears until her nails dug into her scalp. She screamed through tears, "We never knocked. Leave us alone." One of the long figures turned its head toward her. The bones in its neck cracked loudly. Then the entire descending structure dropped another foot in one sudden movement. Boom. The sound shook the house so violently that picture frames fell, cupboards burst open, and the lights flickered erratically. Ethan pulled Claire behind him, shielding her from falling debris. The figures below the descending structure slowly raised their arms, long, thin, and lifeless, and pointed at Ethan and Claire. One voice rose louder, clearer, as if leading the rest. "You heard us. You saw us. You belong to us." The floor rumbled again. More shadows stepped onto the lowering platform. Claire looked up, her breath breaking. She whispered, "Ethan. The third floor wants to replace the second." Ethan stared in horror. She was right. The entire house was changing, rearranging, pulling the third floor down to swallow them. The staircase shook violently as something began running up and down it, something invisible, something fast. The sound circled them like a predator testing its prey. Then, slam. The garage door they were running toward slammed itself shut with a metallic scream. Ethan tried to pull Claire toward the basement door. It cracked open on its own. Cold air rushed upward, carrying whispers and the smell of damp earth. Claire backed away violently. No. We can't go down there." But the figures behind them stepped forward, slowly, bending, reaching. The house groaned again. The third floor crept down another few inches. The shadows reached a little closer. The walls pressed in tighter. Ethan looked at Claire with panic in his eyes. "We're running out of room." Claire sobbed, trembling so hard she could barely stand. The whispers grew louder. "Come upstairs. Come upstairs. Come upstairs." The third floor kept descending, filling the house with darkness. And for the first time Ethan understood. They didn't want to kill them. They wanted to keep them. Forever. The third floor was almost fully inside the house now. The ceiling sagged so low that Ethan could touch it if he raised his hand. Dust drifted down like falling ash. Shadows writhed across the walls, long thin shapes twisting and bending as if warming up their limbs after years of waiting. Claire backed away until her shoulders hit the basement door. She screamed when she felt cold air leak from the darkness behind her. Ethan pulled her away quickly. "Stay close. Do not go down there." But the shadows from the descending floor closed in around them. They moved like water, flowing toward the couple, bending impossibly, some crawling on all fours, some hanging from the half-lowered ceiling, their limbs swinging gently like broken marionettes. The whispers grew louder. "Join us." Claire pressed her palms to her ears, crying. "Why us? We didn't do anything." A distorted voice answered from above. "You heard the knocking. You stayed awake. You chose to listen." Ethan shouted into the darkness, "We didn't choose anything." A deep, rumbling sound rolled through the room like thunder. The house shook hard. Cracks split down the walls. Boards on the windows pulsed like they were breathing. The symbols glowed bright red, spreading like veins across the plaster. Claire whispered, "Ethan, it's alive. This house is alive." The creature from earlier, the one with twisted limbs, appeared again in the dining room doorway. It stood with its spine bent backward, head tilted so far to the side its ear almost touched its shoulder. It raised one arm and pointed at the couple. Its voice was nothing but rattling breath. "Come upstairs." Ethan pulled Claire behind him. "No. We're not going anywhere with you." The creature's jaw cracked open wider than any human mouth could stretch. A slow, shaking laugh leaked out. Then it lunged. Ethan swung a broken table leg at it. The creature hit the ground, limbs snapping around like ropes. But instead of retreating, it crawled toward them with terrifying speed, its body scraping the floor, its fingers leaving dark streaks behind. Ethan lifted Claire and pushed her toward the staircase. "Go. Run." But the moment she reached the bottom step, the staircase moved. The wood shifted like muscle. The steps folded inward like a mouth closing. Claire screamed as the staircase sealed shut, becoming a solid wall. No, please," she cried, slamming her fists against it. The house rumbled in answer. The descending third floor dropped another foot. A massive beam cracked open, revealing something behind it. A room. A hallway. Doors. The third floor was revealing itself. Claire grabbed Ethan's hand. "Ethan, they're giving us a way up." He shook his head. That's not a way out. That's a trap. The shadows began to circle them again, closing in with slow, deliberate steps. Ethan tried the front door one last time, slamming into it as hard as he could. It didn't budge. Something whispered through the door crack. A voice they hadn't heard before. A woman's voice. Soft, desperate, long dead. I tried to leave too. Claire froze. Who are you? The voice answered. Another one who heard the knocking. A shiver raced up Claire's spine. What happened to you? The woman whispered. I'm upstairs. The third floor groaned and lowered again. The shapes moving behind the descending structure became clearer, thin, pale bodies walking sideways along invisible floors. Some hung from the ceiling beams by their arms, swaying gently. Others crawled upside down like spiders, turning their eyeless faces toward Ethan and Claire. Ethan pulled Claire close. We aren't going up there. But the house disagreed. The floor beneath them moved, tilting slightly, shifting as if the entire structure was pushing them toward the center of the room. Claire lost her balance and fell to her knees. Ethan grabbed her, but the shadows rushed closer, reaching for her ankles, her arms, her hair. She kicked and screamed, and oh, let go of me. But invisible hands held her down. Ethan grabbed her, fighting wildly, dragging her away, but something wrapped around his wrist. Something cold. Something strong. He tried to pull away, but the grip tightened until pain shot up his arm. He looked down. A hand. A pale, bony hand with fingers far too long, reaching from a crack in the floorboards. Ethan screamed and yanked his arm free, skin tearing in the creature's grip. Claire cried, Ethan. Ethan, they're pulling me. The shadows grabbed her legs and dragged her toward the lowering third floor. Ethan lunged and held onto her shoulders, pulling with every ounce of strength he had. No. I'm not letting them take you. The whispering surrounded them. Join. 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 The third floor dropped its final foot. Boom. Dust exploded outward. Walls shook. Glass shattered. And now Ethan and Claire could see it clearly. A full hallway above them. Rotting doors. Symbols covering every inch. Figures standing in every doorway. Waiting. Arms outstretched. The cult. Still alive. Still here. Still knocking. The shadows pulled harder. Claire screamed louder. Ethan felt his grip slipping. She cried, Ethan, don't let go. He didn't want to. He didn't mean to. But the shadows swarmed him too, wrapping around his arms, his neck, his legs, pulling him backward as Claire was lifted upward toward the descending floor. They both screamed each other's names. The shadows hissed. Upstairs. And in one violent motion, the house swallowed them. Ethan and Claire were dragged upward into the darkness of the third floor. The ceiling closed behind them. The house stopped shaking. The symbols stopped glowing. The whispers faded. Everything returned to silence. As if nothing had ever happened. As if the third floor had never existed. Until 2:45 a.m. came again. And the knocking began for someone new. Knock. Knock knock. Knock. The house waits. The third floor is hungry. And it always wants more.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Leave us a comment for more stories like this. Your support means the world. Stay tuned for more videos.